Right, this is the open-sided Victorian coach. This is the kit you'll be making. People are not included. This is a 32mm version. And the roof is removable. And seats. Thank you. This is going to be the health and safety. It's a little bit boring, so while I'm reading it you can have a look at a couple of roundhouse engines. So here we go. Health and safety. What follows in this video is my method of constructing an MDF garden railway wagon. The methods I use are mine and are purely a way to an end. The glues I use can and are dangerous if abused or wrongly used. May I suggest that any adhesives or glues that you decide to use are fit for the purpose you're going to use them for. Please read all the manufacturer's guidance notes that accompany them and follow them religiously. I've been building kits now for over 15 years. If it goes wrong, it's my fault, full stop. I don't want your wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, mother or father contacting me and saying it's my fault their beloved one's got their hands stuck to the kitchen table and are waiting for the fire brigade to come because they watched my video. This video is shown as a demonstration of my method. You must follow it as you feel is fit, correct and safe. Always use super glue in a well ventilated area. This is quite a major warning. Do not use a cotton or wool based cloth to wipe off super glue. It will react, it will smoke, it will heat up and may even catch fire. I use one type of wood glue, Evo Stick wood adhesive. I list those three glues, but obviously others are available. It's your choice. You may have a preference or from previous experience. You'll need some elastic bands, various sizes depending which model you're going to be building, but a good average one is 70 to 80 diameter, that's millimeters, and it's about 2mm thickness of rubber. You'll need a knife and other bits and bobs, general modelling knife. The ones with the break-off blade seem ideal. A damp cloth is useful for wiping off excess glue, some kitchen towel or loo roll, some long-nosed pliers and some spring-loaded clips. I'm warning you again, do not use cotton or wool-based cloth to wipe off super glue. Okay, so that's the end of the health and safety. So please sit back, watch the video through and then start to build the wagon and enjoy it. Thank you. Right, these are the general tools that I use to build the models. I use two types of super glue, both from Toolstation. We've got a very runny one, which is a bit like water, and then we've got a thicker one, which is a bit like wallpaper paste, a thick oil almost. And what I do is I've got a couple of little caps off of milk bottles which I pour into and keep one for the thin and one for the thick, and I use a bent paper clip to dip and put the glue onto the various parts we're building. You need a sharp knife, a pair of pliers, and an assortment of elastic bands. May need some other bits as we go along, but those are the general tools that we use. I also label my bottles thick and thin. It's very easy to pick up the wrong one at the wrong time, and the little containers are labelled thick and thin as well. Another set of tools that may be useful and assist with building are these spring-loaded clamps, which are available from places like Toolstation. They're not very expensive. You'll see later on in the video where these will be used to clamp the underframes together rather than using a pair of pliers. So if you've got these in your box, they'll be useful. This is the build, or start of the build of the Victorian open-sided coach. To start off with, you're going to need 8 seats, base, 2 ends, 1 centre section and 2 braces to build up the basic chassis. So to start off with, we put the base on 2 sides to one side, and we take the centre section. There's 4 holes and some lugs at the bottom. And the seat goes into those lugs so that all the lugs face down the bottom. Not that way round, but that way round. And we do that on a flat surface. Just push them down into the holes and then grabbing a bit of super glue. We add it just where the lugs are that sit through. Just smear it around a little bit and turn it round and do the same on the other one. Make sure it's pushed down firmly, no gaps. And we put that to one side to dry, and then we can move on to putting the seats onto the base. Again, it's obvious which way round they go. Obviously not that way, they go that way. Push them into the holes, you'll see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes. Again, push down firmly, a little bit of super glue where the lugs are. The same for the other side. Bit of glue where the lugs are. And turn them round and do the ones the other end. Make sure it is pushed down firmly and there's no gaps underneath. Right, check no gaps, and we put that one to one side. Then back to the centre section. So we now turn that over and we put the seats on the other side now. It's a little bit more tricky because we don't have a flat surface to lay it on. Again, push in tight, make sure they line up with the one on the other side. No gaps. A little bit of super glue where the lugs are, and we do the same on the other one. Again, nice tight fit, lines up with the one on the other side. Bit of super glue, and we put that to one side to dry. Together with the base, we put to one side to dry for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then when we come back we can start to glue the rest. Right, we've left that to dry, so we can now add the centre section. It's fairly obvious how it goes in and lines up the holes in the base. You may have to move them a little bit sideways. Again, make sure it's pushed firmly down, tight, as far as you can against the base. We don't want any gaps in that area there. So again, firmly push down, in with the super glue, rub it along where the seats are, middle, a little bit where the lugs are, turn them over, and we do the same on this side, again where the seats are, in the middle, and where the lugs are on each end, making sure it's pushed firmly down. Right, we can now add the end sections. Now these are quite important. You see it's got engraving on one side and blank on the other. It's important the engraving goes on the outside, so that when we fit it in, the engraving's on the outside. So these line up
with the slots, it's fairly obvious where they go. We'll push it firmly again into the back, so we don't want any gaps along the bottom there. In the super glue where the lugs are. And up the back where the seats are. Hold that nice and firm and against the seats. It's the seats that hold this at 90 degrees. Check again, got the engraving on the outside, and we can now move to the other end. Again, engraving on the outside. You may find that sometimes it hasn't popped out the bit where it's cut round for the slot. Offer him up. Again, make sure the seats go in, engage in the slots. And again, we've got no gap along the bottom there. Same with the glue again, where the lugs are. And where the seats, lugs are. On both seats. Again, make sure you push firmly and firmly against the seats. And put that away again for 2 to 3 minutes to dry thoroughly. Then when we come back, we'll fit the cross braces at the top. Right, now we can fit the cross braces. So lay down your chassis. They're both the same, but you can fit these upside down, which you don't want to do. That is upside down. That's the correct way up, so that it's flush with the top of the coach. A little bit of glue into the slot. Push him down in. Just lay the other end in for the moment. Make sure he's pushed firmly up that way. And just hold it for about 10 seconds. Then we can move up to the other end. Just pop him out a little bit. Bit of super glue into the slot. And drop him down on. And again push him that way and push down. And then turn him over. And we do exactly the same on this side. Again, making sure you get it around the right way. Bit of glue in the slot. Offer him in, wipe off any excess. Drop him in that end. And push that direction and that direction. And we go to the other end, bit of super glue, just lift him gently, put some into the slot, and again push that way and that way, just wipe off any excess glue. And that completes the basic chassis. So the next job to do then is to put the various overlays on. The next job then is to fit the side inners, as I call them. So you lay your coach wagon down on its side, and we have this part here which has lugs at each end and slots along the bottom which line up with those lugs. So we'll do a trial fit first of all. And if we offer it along the bottom, you'll find all the bottom ones drop in and the first 3 drop in, and then you've got to curve it a little bit to make the others join in, and then at the top you've got a small hole there which goes in with that lug there, but we needn't worry about that for the moment. First thing we have to do is to actually glue just those 3 along the bottom and those 3, and we'll worry about the bending bit afterwards. Again, take your super glue, and we go along, we put some in each of the grooves, in the bottom 3 grooves, 1, 2, 3, and then just a little bit either side of the notch. And the 3 grooves. And just put a little bit, about a third of the way up on the centre section. And then taking the inner, you drop it down onto all the slots and to the ends, and then generally holding a bit of pressure on the bottom. Just make sure that it's dropped in to all the ones on the sides, and then at the same time just give it a little bit of a push. Fingers get glued in from that direction while keeping downward pressure. Just generally keep moving your fingers around. When you're happy that that's all gone down correctly, we then have to run a fillet of glue along that surface there. Again, using the super glue, and sort of just paint it on. Don't get any on this surface here though, just along the line you can see I'm doing. Need to be too precise on this. We're going to wipe it off afterwards. We just want the glue to soak down between the joins. And then taking a piece of tissue paper, just wipe off the excess and just run along that edge as well. Right, and while we leave that to dry, we can actually turn over now and do the other side exactly the same. So again, we do a trial fit. So it drops in all the way along, and then we can glue that one in. So I'll go ahead and do that, and you can do the same. When you come back, we've done both sides. Right, so we've now glued just along the bottom and up the first 3 on both sides. So now the next job is to pull that in so the notch goes in, pull in the middle so the pin goes through the hole, and pull in the end. At the same time, you need to keep some pressure in that direction because it does tend to bow out a little bit. So what I tend to do is just start one end, take a bit of super glue, put it into the notch, and then squeeze that in, squeeze in the middle, and at the same time keep some pressure in that direction. Make sure it's fully down into the slot. Sort of bending it quite a lot, as you can see. Then you need to hold that for about 30 seconds. Before that's dry, then you can release it a little bit, and we can move down to the centre section. In the centre section, we need to run some glue down the inside, some super glue where it's going to touch, and around the little notch area that's going to poke through. And then if you put 2 fingers on the seat and a thumb either side and squeeze that in, as you can see as I've done there. Try not to get your fingers near where the hole is, otherwise you'll end up sticking your thumb to it. Again, you can see I'm pushing in quite a lot, almost bending it in. So I'm holding it up against the center section, again for maybe 20-30 seconds, just for the glue to set off. And then we move up to the final end, which is here. We do the same as we did before with the other end. Put the glue into the notch, squeeze the notch in, and again keep some pressure in that direction so that there's no gap. You can see again I'm bending it in quite a lot. Hold that again 20-30 seconds, remove any excess glue. When you're sure that's dry, and we've released. So that's now done that side. So we now repeat that process exactly the same on this side. So I'll go ahead and do that, and you can do the same. Right, so I've now done both sides, and it's nice and flush. And nice and flush. So the next job we have to do is to fit the end sections, or the end overlays. You have 2 overlays look like this. You've got a dirty side and a clean side. Obviously we need to see the clean side. So we'll do a dummy run first of all. Just place him on and you'll find that it will fit precisely. So it'll be level with the top, level with the sides all the way round. And at the bottom you'll see that it slightly kicks in, so there's a slight ridge there and a ridge there. That's to allow the overlays to go on, which we will do after we fitted this. Now to fit these on, I use a PVA glue, a normal wood glue, and what we do is I just put a little blob so it comes out. There we go. Don't need much. I'll just put a little bit in each corner, as you can see. And a little bit halfway along. And then we drop that down on. A little bit of pressure. But being PVA, we can move this around with our fingers. So we've got a nice flush finish. And we've got our little gap each side. So we can now add a little bit more pressure. Obviously, as you can see, the glue does ooze out a little bit. Rub your finger over the top, down the side, make sure we're flush. And then using a knife blade, we just flick out the excess glue. Although the glue does dry clear, it will leave a lump. You need to do this within 2 to 3 minutes, otherwise you won't get the glue out. Just work your way all the way around. Well, I'll go ahead and finish this one off, and you do the same. Right, so that's my end done there. So now we can turn it over. And we do exactly the same on the other end. Again, we have a dirty side, a clean side. Do a trial fit, so you know what you're going to be doing. Out with the glue again, so I'll run through this one again so you can see. small amount of glue. Roughly line it up, drop it on. Make sure it's flush all the way around, and at the top, rub your finger down to remove excess glue. Now you can put some pressure now on the middle sections. Make sure you've got a gap either side at the bottom. Double check. I've got a little bit of a step there, so I need to go up very slightly. That's better. And we're okay. I've still got a step or notches on the bottom. So again, a quick check. Flush, flush, and flush. And now we can go around again with the knife and just flick out the bits of glue, which I'll go ahead and do. Right, she's returned and we've now stuck on the overlays on both ends. So now we have to put the overlays on the side. You need to find two overlays, both identical. And they're quite fragile, these. You're getting around the right way. Obviously it doesn't go that way. So what happens is, lay the coach on the side and you'll find that it will drop down and it will touch those two lips that stick out either side or either end. So that's its point going down that way. As you can see, I'm pulling it down onto those notches. And at the same time, rub your fingers each end just to get it flush at each end. And then just gently, this is a dry run, gently hold in there with your hand and make sure it runs up the side, it's flush, and it's flush that side and flush at the top. But all we're going to do is we're actually going to glue just along up to about that height, so it's going to be like that. That's the only parts we're going to glue to start with, so we end up gluing it in that position, and then when that glue's dry we then roll the top over and glue that. So we'll do that first of all. We use again a PVA glue, and similar to doing the end ones, you put just a little blob a couple of blobs in between there. And I just tend on this one, just spread that one a little bit with your finger, and we offer him down. So he's flush each end and he's pulled down so he's touching the notches, and then we can put a little bit of pressure. Again, using the same technique as we did on the ends, using the knife, just flick out the bits of paint, we haven't done that yet, the bits of glue that have oozed through. Now that needs to be left for about 5 minutes to thoroughly dry before we move on to the next stage. that when you come back, we'd have waited the 5 minutes so we can move on. So what we did before, which was to run a film of super glue along the bottom, just to reinforce that side there. So we turn it over, take our super glue, and just as we did before, we sort of paint it along this edge. So that it soaks down between the two surfaces and we end up with a nicely good solid joint. Then use a tissue to remove the excess and make sure you've got none on the front surface. So we now again need to leave that to dry. What we can do though, of course, is to start to work on the other side. So what we can do is just turn them over. So we haven't done this part yet, we don't need to yet. If we turn over, we will now do exactly the same with the other one. So again, we do a dry run up against the edges, flush either side, and lays up on the top. Okay, so we do exactly the same, so I'll go ahead and do that. When you come back, I'd have glued this one on at the bottom and I'd have run my super glue along the bottom. Right, our next job now is to finish gluing the overlay on, which again is done in 2 stages with super glue this time, although you could use PVA. What we tend to do is just, we can move them out slightly. We're going to run some super glue just along that surface there. That's as far as we go. And then we gently push that down onto the super glue. And then just squeeze it all the way along so that join is flush and is glued. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So just tease them away a little bit. Get your super glue. We don't need a lot for this, just on the top edge there. You can see where I'm putting it. And then we gently push it down. Just run your fingers along to make sure it is pushed down firmly. And just rub any excess glue off the surface. And we leave that to dry. While that's drying, we'll go over and we'll do exactly the same on the other side. Again, tease it out gently with your finger. In with the glue again. And put some glue where I'm putting it now. And offer it up, keeping gentle pressure. and a good squeeze, especially on the ends. Again, rub your finger over to remove any excess glue. And we go back to the other side, and now we've just got to do the top part, and we do that in exactly the same way. So we can tease it apart, as you can see, and we just run some super glue along that surface there. Just a smear. Not building the fourth bridge here. And then we can offer that up, making sure that we're parallel or flush all the way up there. And I'll check the other side. And then gently squeeze the top surface in. And then using a tissue or your finger, gently rub over the top surface. And we'll now go ahead and do that on the other side. Again, gently tease it out. Get in with the glue. Same trick again. Push that end in, making sure that it's flush. Do the same this end, making sure it's flush, and then gently squeeze the top in. And with the tissue, again, remove the excess. And there we have the overlays done. The next part we fit are the seats. Obviously, if you want to paint the inside before you fit the seats, now's the time to do it. But the seats consist of the bit you sit on and the bit you lean against. The bit you sit on is small, that way, and that's the bit you lean on. And again, it's got a dirty side and a clean side. We're interested in the clean side. It's got 4 holes which line up with 4 notches. So again, take the seat in. As you can see what I've done there, lined it up with the notches and just push down and it will clip on. And then the back, again, you've got a clean side and a dirty side. We're interested in the clean side only, and a curve. So again, that goes in onto the notches. You have to move it around a little bit to line up. Got a tight fit. And that's the rear of the seat done. So we do that now on all the others. So again, clean side up, curvy out, that's the bit you sit on. Line up with the notches. Some of them are a bit tight. And then we put it back on, again as you can see, dirty, clean, curvy at the top. So you get the general idea. So go ahead and do the other ones on the other side. Right, that's all my seats fitted. Now you can, if you want, just add a little bit of super glue onto where each of the notches stick through. It's not pushed in front, right. So just go around and put a little bit of super glue on those and they'll hold the seats in. It's entirely up to you. They're quite a tight fit, so they're not going to come out anyway on their own. So go ahead and do that if you wish to. Right, now we're going to proceed with constructing the roof support and then the roof itself. So you'll need the body that you've just made, 3 half hoops, as you can see there, quite an intricate half hoop, two thin long shaped pieces like that, and 2 long ones with some very delicate ends on. So we start off with mounting the 3 hoops, and you'll notice that they are all different. Lots of notches in it, notch in the top and ones on the bottom, and ditto with that one. That one's got square holes in it. Right, so we now have to fix the 3 half circles, call it what you like. Right, we'll start off with this one, which has got 2 little notches and 2 little notches in the top and a little line. And on this side there is no line. Now we need to see that line, and the way this fits in is it slides down until it's resting on the seat. And that gives it its height. And we've got to sellotape that in position. That's a temporary measure. So take a piece of sellotape, and position it so it's sat on top of the seat and the sellotape just holding it in position. And then we take the other one, which is for the other end, which has got 2 holes and again a little line. We want to see that line on the outside, so he will go in that position there. So we need the sellotape again. And we position him on the seat, push down, and make sure the sellotape is holding it in position. Then we come to the middle one. Doesn't matter which way around that goes, but it's got to be positioned on the seat which is furthest away from those notches there. So you've got the little cuts there on top, so this one has to sit on that seat there. And again we use a bit of sellotape to hold that one in position. It doesn't have to be exact, as long as it's sat roughly on that seat. Just to temporarily hold it in position. So the next stage you then have to add is the braces going across the top. So we take the one with the long thin section and we load him into the slot at the end, slot him down over the middle section, and you'll find the little piece at the end just drops in. We do the same with the next one, absolutely identical. And drops in at the end. You then have to add pieces down the side. Now the way these have to go is quite important. You have a small cut one side and a big ridge the other side, so it's important which way in they go. They have to go with the big ridge facing up, and the little notch, which is halfway between the end, wants to go down the same end as where these thin pieces are. So we do a trial run, so big cut goes up, and that one slots into there very nicely. And we do the same with this one, again making sure that the biggest section faces up. And if we push in from each end, we should have a bit of slot backwards and forwards. So the object now is to glue that up. So we use our super glue. And our little screwdriver I use for putting it on with. She's got some glue on it at the moment, so I'll just clean that off. So the first thing we want to do is this corner back here. So we've got to make sure that it's pushed in, and if you push with your finger that way, that will push it in tight. Just put a little bit of super glue into that joint. Wait a short time for it to go off. Then we can move back to this section here. Do exactly the same. With this one we can put some glue on both sides. Keeping pressure on it to make sure that there's no gap. And move to the next one. Do exactly the same. And then last of all we come to this one down here. Again we do the same. Bit of pressure on it. Bit of glue in there. Wait for it to go off. And then we can spin it round. And then we do exactly the same this end. Miss the two thin ones out for the moment. And now back to the thin ones. To keep just a little bit of pressure down. Just put a blob of glue on top, and that will run down in. And then just with a tissue, mop up the excess, because we don't want any bumps on top, because that's where the roof's going to go. And then we do exactly the same with the other one. Although these are flimsy at the moment, they will become a lot stronger when the actual roof is fitted. Right, then we can move to the middle section. Do the inner ones first. Bit of glue, making sure the seat, or the centre section is still sat on the seat. And we just go around and do all those joints there. And we can move to the outside ones, just pinch it in to make sure they're flush on both sides. Again, a bit of glue in each corner. Then we leave that for about 5 minutes to dry before we move on to the next section. Right, with the glue dry, now is the time to take it out. So first thing to do is to tease off the sellotape and then gently slide it out. Remove the rest of the sellotape. And put the body to one side. Right, now we're going to fit the last little piece, which is just quite odd looking piece. Now this one's quite difficult to fit and there is a risk of breaking things, so we'll go careful with it. The first thing to do is make sure we've got around the right way, that those funny little notches there, we've got to line up with those. So I'll show you one way. As you can see, they're the same. And of course, if I turn it round, you'll see they're different. Now we want them around the right way, which is the same way, which is like that. And this piece then loads into that location there. Now the best way to do that is to first of all load in the notches that end, which I've done there, and then lower them down, and then flex this one out so it drops down in, and that clips in there. So we've clipped in both sides and we're level all the way around. So we now have to glue that one in position, which again we do as before. Do that on both sides. Just on the end there. And we put that aside now for a couple of minutes to dry. Now the next stage is we have to glue the roof to this part here. Now what normally happens is you take your roof with the lines on and you'll see there's a little mark. That is the center point of the roof. And on here you'll notice there was a little line which we made sure we could see, and that's the center line of that. Now what will happen is that this will load into there, and then we position that on the roof. But to show you what we'll do first, I'll do it without the body so you can actually see what we do. So imagine we've got the body on top, so we lower it on and we line up the lines at each end. So this is done down on the flat surface, and then we make sure we have the same distance showing roof there as we do there. So we slide it backwards a little piece until it's about the same each side and our lines are lined up. So we do that in that position there. So let's say we've done that with the body attached. We then add some super glue to that location and that location where the two lines are, and then we wait 2 to 3 minutes for it to dry. And then what we do is we roll it on a flat surface. Now obviously this will bring that one up because we're glued here, and it will touch down. So make sure that's okay, so we then roll it back straight and we put some glue in those 4 locations. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we roll it onto the glue, and then add a little bit more super glue at each end so it soaks in. We then wait 2 to 3 minutes. Then when we roll it back, the roof will be attached. Then we roll it over. Bring it into view so you can see. We roll it over and we do exactly the same over on that side. So we do this now with the frame added. We line it up and we do exactly what we did just now. So I'll go ahead and do that, and when you come back I'll have glued the centre section. Right, I've now glued my 2 centre sections, which means if I start to roll, hopefully you can see it's picking up the roof on that side, so I can now glue down this side, which is what I'll go ahead and do. Right, I've glued my ends, so I'm now going to gently roll back. As you can see, the roof is now attached on one side. So we turn it round, and now we repeat with the roll on the other side, which I'll go ahead and do. So I've now glued my side, I'll roll it back gently, and we have a roof glued on. So now very gently lift it out. Put the body to one side, and we now have to reinforce all these joints. So we take our super glue, and we add it all the way along the curvature there. And also it soaks through. And then with your fingers and thumbs, just push it hard just to hold it in place for about 30 seconds. And then we do the same on this one, and this one at this end, in all the places where it touches the roof. So I'll do that, and when you come back, we'll move on to the next bit. Right, so I've now done all the curvy bits. And it's beneficial just to add a little bit of super glue now to the sides. Just one blob in there, and one blob in there. Just spread it up and down a little bit where it touches, and just a little bit of pressure on there. Again, not too long, 5-10 seconds is all that's needed. Then we can move over and do exactly the same on the other side. My side's lifted a little bit there, so just push down. Right, we then put that aside for a good 10 minutes to make sure all the glue is dry before we move on to the next section. Right, the glue is now dry, so we can now break off these three pieces. The best way to do that is the finger and thumb there just to hold that firmly and gently rock it, and it just drop off. Do the same for this section, gently rock it, it comes off, and for the one at the end, again do exactly the same, gently rock it and it comes off. Obviously these pieces we throw away. So we now have our roof section. Now, don't be tempted to fit it just yet, because there may still be some glue that hasn't quite gone off yet, and if you do fit it, chances are it will end up gluing itself to the actual body. So I would give it another half an hour just to make sure, and possibly just run a tissue around all the edges to make sure that there is no wet super glue there. And then you can go ahead and do a trial fit, which we'll do. So that fits on quite nicely, follows the curves, and it should be able to fit either way round, which it does. Now there is an option, which is what all these funny cutouts, and is to fit a lighting unit, which is supplied. Now some people will say, oh, but it never had a lighting unit because it's a tourist coach, open coach. Well, that's fine. Well, don't fit it then, or fit it and don't turn it on. But I think it looks quite nice with the light lit, and if you've got some people sat in there. So the next job we will do is to fit the lighting unit, so you can see how that goes in. Right, so here we have the lighting unit. It consists of a battery pack, wire, and some LEDs. The actual LEDs are quoted at 6 volts. And that's why they use two 2026 batteries. 3 volts each in series gives you 6 volts. But that is very, very bright LEDs, far too bright in my opinion. So if you open up the battery pack, what you'll find inside is one battery and a 5p coin. Now what I've done is taken one battery out, or I only fitted one battery, and the coin shorts out where the other battery should be. So in fact all we're doing is running the LEDs on 3 volts. It's quite simple. If you want to run them brighter, then just add another battery. The little switch turns them off and on. As you can see, that's on and off, and with 3 volts that is quite bright. You'll find that will run for a good 12 hours with not any noticeable change in brightness. Fitted to the rear is some double-sided tape, very, very sticky. So I'll now show you how to actually fit this unit into the roof. Now we start off by feeding it through there, all the way. And then we feed it through just one of the slots. And just flick it up and pull it out. And then feed it down into that location there. And then push it back up as far as it'll go. The battery pack sits in that position there, and you have a little keeper plate, which should be fairly obvious how it goes. Drops down into the slots, push down, and then slide it. It's a tight fit. There we go. So that holds the battery pack in. The LEDs, or at this point obviously you would take the double-sided tape off, feed it in and stick them down. And there you have your battery pack and your lighting. So that then allows you to fit. And if I turn off some lights, and you have that effect. But of course you don't have to fit it, or if you fit it you don't have to use them. Right, next job now is to fit the handles, of which there's holes made. It's a 2mm hole, so you can actually purchase some brass hand knobs, for want of a better word, handles, from a company called Swift 16, who do a very nice brass one which will fit into those holes. Or you can make up the ones out of MDF, which I supply in the kit, which will follow next. Although you won't actually see them fitted to this wagon, they're fitted to the other coaches, so it's a general way of doing it, so that's very straightforward. This covers the door handles for the Victorian coaches. Swift 16 make a very nice brass door handle, which work out I think about £5 for 10, I can't remember exactly, but they're very nice. They need a 2mm hole added, where I supply my unit with a 1mm hole in case you want to make your own. Also supplied in the kit are a wooden version of a twist handle, of which you can see the 3 parts in front of you. These are incredibly finicky to make, but I will go ahead and show you how to make them. So you have 3 parts. You have the part that ends up being glued onto the actual wagon itself. You've got the little piece which is the rotating piece, that goes into there. And then finally you've got the actual handle itself, which is then glued onto there to give you the drop down handle. So to make that we need some PVA glue. So I'll just put a little dollop for us to work with. It's incredibly difficult to do. So you pick up first of all the little pin, the knife blade in the end, small amount of PVA, preferably on the side. That then goes into the one with the big hole, and just move it a little bit once you've done it, otherwise it'll end up sticking to the underneath. So that's the base structure done. Next thing we have to do, it's still stuck a little bit there, we are, is to actually put this piece onto there now. Now that's best done with some super glue. Again, a very, very small amount is needed. So again, very small amount of super glue, just onto the very top there. Then we take our ring, and we push that down onto the super glue. Allow that to dry. And there you have your ring handle, and that is then glued onto the side of the Victorian wagon where the holes are. So that's the ring option, of which you need 4 per wagon. There's also the option of fitting a T-type handle, which is basically the same again. We've got the round bit which glues onto the wagon, centre portion, and then the T handle. So we'll just assemble one of those. Again, a very small amount of PVA on the side, into the hole. Generally hold it in position, remove any excess glue, again move it around so it doesn't end up sticking underneath. Then we have to fit the T-bar, and that's best done with some super glue. Take a small amount of super glue, add it to the top there, and take the T and position it centrally and push down. Again, try and move a little bit, make sure it's not stuck to the base. And there you have your T-bar or T-handle. Again, you'll need 4 of those. In the kit you have 2 choices. Now this is the other choice from Swift 16. They do a pack of 10 little handles. These need a 2mm hole putting into the actual wagon, so just run a 2mm drill through the 1mm hole which I supply, and they'll cost you £5.50 plus postage. The last thing then we have to do is to fit the steps on the rear, or not rear, steps on each end, which is what I'll do next. Right, there are 3 steps each end. Again, looking at the steps, we have what I call a clean side. There we are, a clean side and a dirty side. Obviously we put the dirty side down, and as you can see they go into those slots there. So the first thing we do is just put a little bit of super glue just on the bottom, hardly anything needed. We load it in, push it down, make sure it's square, and move on to the next one. Then we move over and do the same at the other end, which I'll go ahead and do. Well, I've now done my steps each end. So the next job is the handrails. Now supplied is a little jig for bending the wire. So you place your wire along the line and then bend up one side at 90, and making sure you're lined up, you bend the other one up. So you do that for both of them. And then you have to cut them to the right length. This is an approximate length. So if you lay it on to the piece of wood that uses the bending jig, that's 2 millimeters. You want to go another 2 roughly, and chop in so you've got about 4 sticking out. And do the same for that side, about 4. I'll do that with the other one. Now these go into the 2 holes which you can see there. So we go into the bottom hole and the top hole. And position it until what looks about right. And then you take just a little bit of super glue. I do this with a knife blade. And just touch it where it shows through. And do that in both locations. And that will soak back in. We do the same for the other one on the other end. Then a little bit of super glue. There we are. That's your handrails done. Right, so the next job then is to do the undercarriage part, the wheels and the chassis, and fitting the buffers. Now that will follow, but it will be seen fitting to a 2-compartment wagon, so it's exactly the same underneath, whether it's a 2-compartment or a 1-compartment guards, or this which is the open-sided. The actual construction underneath is identical, so that's the next part that will follow. Is to do the underframes with the wheels. There's 2 types of wheels. There are a steel wheel and there is a plastic wheel, and depending on which you've ordered is which one you put in. The steel wheel is about £9 extra from what I can remember over the plastic wheel version. So that's what we'll do next. The first items to find are the ones that are labelled 8A and the axle boxes, of which there are 4. And these locate with glue into the location which is marked out on the actual strut. So we will add a little bit of glue. We use white PVA glue, just a little daub, doesn't need much. and we position that onto 8A. You can move it around until it's in the right position. Looks pretty good. We'll now do that with the other 4, and then we'll come back to you. Well, I've now done that. So 8A now has the axle boxes glued on both sides, so we can put those to one side to dry. Now you need to find 2 with number 4 on it, and the 2 with number 5 on it, and the 4 bearings. The bearings go in on the back side, so you can see the writing from there, not from there. Do the same with this one. Again, you can see which way around it is. We then take number 5, turn that over as well, and drop 4 onto 5, and move it around until the bearings just clip in to the holes on number 5. And we do the same with the other one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to glue, using super glue, the bearings onto part of the assembly there. Again, you've got to be careful you don't get the glue over your fingers. So it's a smear it round, and by capillary action it will wick down between the bearing and the wood. And put those aside for a couple of minutes to dry. While we're waiting for those to dry, you can go ahead and sort everything else out, all the other parts, put them in some sort of order. Central order is starting at 1. So I find 1, and there'll be 2 of everything. There's another number 1, there'll be a number 2. Can't find it at the moment. Oh, there we are. In fact, it's 2A and 2, although they are both identical, so you don't worry about the 2 and the 2A on there. Let me find number 3. That's 1, 2, 3. There's another 3 here somewhere, which I don't. Oh, there we are. That's 3 there. 4 and 5 we've already dealt with, and then 6 has got the little hole in it. 7 has got the bit of the spring on it. There we are, 7. 8 is pretty much a copy of it. And we've got 9. And we've got the ends, which aren't numbered, and then we have what's called the stretchers. So if you like to find all those parts, oh, and of course the ones we actually put the axle boxes on, which is 8A. Right, go find those bits, lay them out, and we'll start to assemble the undercarriage with the wheels. Back with me, so we have now the frame that we've built. And we're now going to put the undercarriage on it. So we start off with the 2, 4 and 5, of which we put the bearings in. We haven't actually glued them together. So we put those in with the numbers facing out, and because we're building a 16mm 32mm version wide track, we use the inner slots. If you're doing the 45mm, we would use the outer slots. You'll see there's a little tang on number 5. So that tang goes in. And sits down. And we do exactly the same with the other side. Again, this is items 4 and 5, and we put them in to the inner tang with the numbers facing out. Don't glue anything yet. So that's 4 and 5. We now have to put 1, 2 and 3 in, and the numbers work from the inside out. So the next one we have to find is 3. That just clips in there. 3 goes in on the other side. It's a bit tricky this, but it does work. Then we have to find number 2. And number 2. We find number 1. And number 1. Then we fit the stretchers to these parts here. So just engage one side in, slide it over, and it will drop in and hold those in position. Then rotate it round, and we do exactly the same with the stretcher at the other end. Slot it in, and we're in. Right, what we've forgotten to do, of course, is to put a spot of oil on the bearings, which is what we must do next. So I will just get myself ready and show you how to do that. Right, the bearings don't want an awful lot of oil. It's just to go around where the balls are. There's a number of ways of doing this, from a syringe with a needle, or you can do it this way, which is just squeeze out a bit of oil, 3 in 1 I do, onto the end of a little screwdriver, and just drop it down into the balls area. Again, just one small amount. You need to do this after you fitted the bearings, in case you get oil around the bearings, in which case they won't super glue in. Try not to get any oil off your hands onto the woodwork. Turn them over, and we'll now do exactly the same on this side. Make sure it goes down onto the balls. It's important you do this now, because in a moment we're going to be covering up these bearings and you won't be able to actually oil them. Right, so the next stage now is to fit the wheels. So again, yours may differ because you may having plastic wheels. For this particular model I'm fitting the IP Engineering metal wheels. So we sort of pull the chassis apart a little bit. We drop in from one side, line them up and squeeze. And we turn them over or round. We do exactly the same on this side. Again, pull them apart, in on one side, in on the other, and squeeze them back together. Check the other end, it's all nice and tight, and push the chassis down. And they should both rotate quite nicely. Now we can start to build up each side of the underframes. We've got as far as number 5, so the next one we need to find is 6. Again, it's put on with the numbers facing out, so 6 on there. And then we put 6 on the other side. Pretty snug fit. Then we fit 7. And we fit 7 on that side. And we fit 8. And we fit 8. And we fit 8A, which has got the axle boxes on. 8A. We fit 9 with the cutout recess facing up and the number facing out. And the other 9 on the other side. And we take the ones that don't have any markings on but got the rivet detail, again with the cutout facing up, or up because the wagon's upside down, and we do the same on the one on the other side. And just sort of squeeze them in tight, rub your finger over the top to make sure they're pushed down fully. Do that on both sides. So now we're going to glue all these in position. So now we're going to glue in position so you can see what I'm doing. What we're going to do is with the super glue, while we're holding this tight with our fingers here, we're going to run some super glue along this surface here, rub it around a bit so it soaks down in, then using a clamp, we're going to clamp like that. We're going to count to 10 or thereabouts, then we're going to remove the clamp, and then using a tissue wipe off the excess super glue from that area. So here we go then. So first of all, we make sure that it's all pushed down firmly, and with these two fingers we're holding it together, so we're pushed down firmly. Then we run, just get things ready here a moment. Tissue, right, super glue. We then run some super glue, the runny one, along the top there. So it's got a good fillet there. And we work it in a bit. We get our clamp and we clamp it. And we wait a little while. Doesn't take long with the super glue. We take our clamp off and then remove the excess super glue from that surface. Then move over to the other side again, making sure it's flush down, pull close together with your fingers. Run the super glue along the edge there. Work it into the joints. Clamp on. And we wait. We take the clamp off and we remove the excess. We then repeat that for the other end, which is what I will now do. And when I come back, well, I've done that. Right, so we've now done that part. So we've glued the four ends or four corners. And now to do a little bit of reinforcing. So just taking some super glue, just down into that corner and up the edge. Same there. The corner up to the edge. And then on the spreader plate there. And there. A little bit on the top, making sure you don't get it on the wheel. And then down into that corner, and along the front there, and one on the bottom of the spreader. Then moving along, one halfway, and repeat this at the other end then, and the last one down the end there. What we need now is put that to one side to dry, and then we'll move on to the next bit. So while that's drying, we'll move on and do the little steps. So you've got the floorboard and the supporting structure. It's fairly obvious how it goes together. Get it around the right way though. So you see the rivet detail on the outside, which goes into those slots there. Now again, there's your own way of doing these things, but I find the best way to do it is to take your super glue, over your fingers. Yeah, never mind. Oh god, it's sticky. Right. Lay the floorboard down, take your supporting hand, and then just put a little bit of super glue on either side of the notch. That's all that's needed at the moment. And this bit you've got to be careful with. You need to now lay that so all the notches line up, and then you need to sort of keep moving it so it doesn't stick to the board, at the same time keeping it at 90 degrees. After about 5 seconds it was stuck, so you can pick it up and look down to make sure that things are at 90 degrees and check that the back is flush all the way along. So that was the first one, and then put that to one side like that effectively, otherwise the glue will stick to wherever you lay it. So we'll now do the second one. Again, a bit of super glue either side of the notch. Make sure you got it in the right way. Down in, make sure you're 90 degrees, gently move the whole thing, check that you're 90 degrees and that you're flush all the way along the back. So you can now put that one down to one side and move back to the first one again. What we've got to do now is we've got to put just a bit of super glue into that area at the end, which we didn't actually glue because we only glued where the notches were. So just prise it open with your fingers slightly, blob of glue, push it back, push it down onto the board. Again, keep it moving so it doesn't end up gluing to the board. Do the same the other side. Push it open slightly with your fingers, bit of super glue, back together, push down, keep it moving. There we go. Now we need to strengthen this. The best way to strengthen it is just by rubbing some super glue along the back edge, a bit like painting with super glue, so it runs down between all the joints. Hasn't got to be too neat and tidy because no one sees this side. This is on the inside. I should imagine you'll end up painting over it anyway with black or a red lead colour, depending on what your choice of colour is when you do it. And we come down to the other end. Right, let's put the glue all along that edge. And again, put it down like that, otherwise it'll stick to the board. And do the same now with the other one. This part that you glued all along the edge is now dry. Lay the coach on its side. This slots in to the location there. So you do a dry fit first of all, and that fits in there quite nicely. So again, take your super glue. And all we're interested in doing is putting a small amount on where each of the T-joints are. So I'll do that now. Doesn't need a lot. It's not a stress point. and then offered into the wagon, pushing it up hard tight in that direction, and then push the ends down, again pushing it up all the time. That's the running board or step, whatever you want to call it, nicely glued in. So now turn over, and we do exactly the same on the other side. Do a dummy run first of all, make sure it fits, and push into the corner with a knife. Same this end. Nice and tight all the way along. And that's the other running board done. So that's that complete. So the last part to do is to fit the link that joins across the brakes. That, where are we? There we are, look like that. And a piece of heat shrink. And you'll need a pair of snips or a small pair of scissors. And I will show you what to do next as soon as I find my snips. There we are. So I have everything in position to see what I'm going to do. The wires go through the little hole, as you can see. So you poke it through the hole until it comes out the other side. And then with a very small amount of super glue, I don't know if I got that in focus or not. A quick check. Yeah, that's right, you can see what I'm doing. And with just a little bit of super glue, make sure the end is flush with the outside. And just put a little dab of super glue where it sticks through. As you can see, there it's just flush on this face and just sticking through there. Then you take your heat shrink and you cut it so it fits in between. Doesn't got to be a perfect fit. There we go. So slide that over the first one you've just put in. You take your other wire, you slide that in the other hole and into the heat shrink. Take it across until it's just about flush. Again, you take a little bit of super glue and just touch it on the wire just to lock it in place. And then take a lighter and just a little bit of heat. You can use a heat gun if you want. Just play it backwards and forwards until the heat shrink shrinks. That completes the undercarriage. Fitting the buffers is straightforward into the slot, nut washer on the other side, and adjust the height that suits your particular railway you're running.